recording, but I do want to let everyone know that that is now recording. So thanks again. This is the May 27th, 2020 edition of the Oak Grove Community Council meeting. And we just heard from Joe Barham, co-founder of Hiva SPC, and we'll be sending out his contact information about T-shirts for good in our follow-up email after this meeting. So I believe that we have now been joined by our treasurer, Jane Civiletti. And I'd like to invite you, Jane, to provide the treasurer report.
Well, the treasurer report is as follows. We had no income since our last meeting on Zoom. We did write one check for the website domain. That was to Ed Riddle, who's paying for the domain, $79.50, which leaves our balance at, Dan, are you ready?
Yes.
$2,032.38.
Awesome, thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
And now it's time to turn it over for our feature presentation for the evening. Tamara Falls from Portland General Electric is here to speak about the smart grid test bed.
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Hello, we can.
Okay, good. Thanks for having me. So I was able to present along with Tim Treadwell several months back now about PGE's Smart Grid Testbed Pilot Project, which is happening in Oak Grove in Milwaukee. And it's based on substations, so there's a little bit of Milwaukee, but the majority of the testbed is actually in Oak Grove. And so I'm just back to get some, hopefully to hear from you all and get some feedback about testbed products and services, and to just hear your thoughts as we are about 7 or 8 months into this 2.5-year testbed pilot project. So the testbed is part of what's called the Smart Grid project, and it's happening in only 3 cities across Oregon, which in those 3 places are Hillsborough, Milwaukee, and North Portland. And those communities were selected because as a whole, they represent PGE's service territory overall. They're pretty representative when you put them all together. And so really the testbed is a hub that brings together technology along with community participation to produce a more modern, smarter grid. And so really it's about shifting energy during those peak times of energy use. So it's about when and how we use energy, and that's directly connected to what source of energy gets used. So there are certain times of day, like early winter mornings, hot summer afternoons like this afternoon, which was beautiful, I'm not complaining. But during those times, everyone uses a lot of energy. You know, you'll start to crank the air conditioning or turn fans on, and then that creates energy spikes. And during those times, you know, we have to keep the grid, keep energy going, obviously. And so there's never going to be a time where there's not enough energy on the grid. And so in order to do that, we're constantly purchasing energy from, if we can't generate enough of our own, then it has to be purchased. So those spike times really make it the most expensive time to have to acquire energy. And then it means that we can't always pull from renewable energy sources. So, you know, we may be pulling from energy sources that have a larger carbon impact. So we want to be able to reduce that environmental impact and keep costs low, and also avoid investments in distribution systems and building more distribution systems needed to maintain that maximum energy use time. So I have some questions, and maybe we can just have people popcorn style chime in and we'll see how that works. So I'm just wondering, I'll start with the first couple questions. What people have heard about peak times of energy or energy spikes, or if anyone has heard about that, or what you know about it, or if you want to know more about it. And then the second part is, have you heard about any programs or products to help with those energy spikes or peak time uses?
I invite anyone who, oh, Jan, go ahead.
I was raising my hand, but I can't even find myself on the grid here to see.
Yeah.
I was going to say, well, I saw your other presentation tomorrow, so I have some knowledge of the Smart Grid program, but I also wanted to say that I survived the Enron disaster in California, and we were in rolling blackouts. And when power isn't managed and it gets really costly, boy, it was a disaster. It was a nightmare. Yeah. The other thing I've heard about is that isn't there a thermometer that you can get that helps turn off your temperature when you don't need it? Or you can explain it better than I can, but I know there's some kind of a thermometer that helps regulate your house temperature for maximum efficiency, I guess I would say.
Yeah, yes, you're exactly right. So that's one of the two products for the smart grid that are currently in operation right now that you could sign up for, which is, it's called the smart thermostat. And I'll put a link to more information in the chat box when I'm done. But that really, there's a program where you can essentially have it installed for free if your system, if you have a system that it works within, meaning you either have a cooling or a heating system that could work with it. And it's about, PGE can then control the thermostat, which kind of sounds scary and scares some people, but you can always, you're always in charge of your thermostat. You can always override it. It's just that PGE will turn it up or down during those peak times so that you don't have to. And then, you know, that creates less of a stress on the overall energy grid. And so you either get a free thermostat for doing that, or if you already have one of those smart thermostats like a Nest or Ecobee, then you get a $25 per season that you participate incentive to participate in letting PGE turn it up or down and adjust. And it's really only about a 4-degree temperature change in any direction. Yeah, so that's one of the ways. The other programs is the peak time rebates. And that's where you would get a message from PGE during those peak times saying, you know, we know it's going to be a hot day tomorrow. We're going to call what they call an event and ask that everyone would during, you know, say maybe during the hours of 1 o'clock and 5 o'clock, reduce usage of air conditioners or not run your dishwasher or something like that.
Valerie?
I was curious about how far into the future some of the other programs might be instituted. When I first heard about this smart grid, one of the things they talked about was using the battery power off of, for example, electric cars. So I was wondering about that. We're in the test bed area. We have an electric car. We don't have an electric thermostat. So there's a...
Okay. Yes, that's coming very soon. So, and we're not quite, it takes a lot. It's the energy field, as you probably can guess, is highly regulated as it should be. And so anytime you introduce some new technology or new energy storage system, you have to have it approved by the Public Utility Commission, the Oregon Public Utility Commission. So look for more information about that in the coming next couple months, but there is a battery plus storage offering that will be coming soon, to where if you have that electric charging station, you can get a storage component, and then you have your own little grid.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the floor for Tamara? Eleanor, do you need me to unmute you? There you go.
Hi, perhaps I have a misunderstanding, but I remembered something about the idea of resilience, that like if part of the grid goes down, that there's some way that how to create the electric grid so there's different like contained or self-contained areas, so that there's a, as you're saying, like an easier, more even flow of things, but also the idea of how it can help build resilience within communities. Is that accurate in any way, or could you speak to that?
Yes, yeah, that is accurate. So part of the smart grid is that it is a grid system so that it's not just a one-way flow of electricity, just lying straight in, but that you could pull from, like what Valerie mentioned, someone may have an energy storage on site. And so we're able to interconnect that grid of all these storage components and pull energy from those sources as needed, which makes the grid really resilient so that if a power line does go down, for example, you can pull from another source and route it another way. And it just it leaves it more flexible to be able to do things like that when you're not dependent on a one-way flow of electricity.
Great. And that would take into account people's solar panels and
Yes.
anything that's plugged into that. So it'd be solar panels, electric car chargers, other things, or those are sort of the two main ones, or? Those are the two main ones. And those are the two programs and products that are happening very soon. I mean, solar, of course, already is in flight and being promoted. And Energy Trust of Oregon is another wonderful resource for all of the solar installers and many different incentives to installing solar. And then, you know, if you're wondering who could do it or how does it work, they're a nonprofit, a large nonprofit organization that really focuses on helping people be more energy efficient. And they do a lot with solar. Well, in that desire to be more energy efficient, I mean, I know I've already signed up for this, so I get the little things like, you know, hey, tomorrow, you know, don't use things between, you know, noon and 5 if you can. I'm like, okay, I'll do my laundry later, or, you know, whatever. Are there other things that people can do to help lessen the strain and build the resilience?
Yeah, those, I mean, the two products, like exactly what you're doing, you know, reduce energy use at times of high usage, the peak time rebates program, or the smart thermostat right now. And then, you know, what Valerie mentioned, the energy plus storage, the grid, and solar. There'll be another push for solar coming very soon to where there are large incentives between PGE's incentives and Energy Trust incentives to make it more affordable for people to put in those solar panels.
You know, I've looked into that and they've told me the orientation of my roof and the number of trees that it doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, sometime soon, hopefully there'll be some other product that'll do something in those circumstances. So.
Well, yeah, the other thing, and watch for this coming soon as well, we're working on, well, there's not really a name for it yet, but something like clean energy or some name like that they'll come up with, the marketers. But it's really around, if you can't do renewables because of the way your roof is facing or things like that, you can volunteer to pay a little extra to help support those renewable programs and to allow PGE to purchase energy from more energy or more cleaner sources. So a lot of people participate in that program, the renewables program.
Mm-hmm. I think I might, I'm not sure. Okay, thanks, that's all.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody have any experience with the smart thermostats, and do they want to ask any questions or have any comments about that? Well, I can say that I do. I've had the Ecobee installed for about 1.5 years, and
Nice.
it's a really it's pretty cool. It's really nice to have the additional data that you can get with that app, and so I particularly enjoy being able to look at the data and see how things are impacted by weather or humidity or other factors, and also being able to compare your data with that other data that Ecobee collects in the zip code and everything is pretty cool. But I guess there's that, and there's another model that PGE supports. Is that correct, Tamara? And it's not the Ecobee, not just the Ecobee, but it's also the Nest. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And so either one of those, you'll in the peak periods where it's really heavy, you'll just adjust the temperature 1 degree or 2 degrees, and it really just cuts off some of that energy usage, and you don't even notice it. I would say, in my experience. So I have a good experience with that.
Yeah. There is one more thing I forgot to mention that just came up. There's also the smart water heaters, and with PGE has a smart water heater program that you may be hearing more about soon as well. And that is where we can, PGE can, if you have your smart thermostat connected, we can go in and preheat water on really cold days so that you're not using as much energy to heat your water up. If we know it's going to be a cold day, it's all done behind the scenes to where when you're ready for hot water, it'll be warm. It won't be freezing cold, where everyone's trying to heat their water from a freezing cold state at the same time. So yeah, that's one more product that will help. I just
awesome. No, go ahead.
One more. I just wanted to see if there was anything anyone else wanted to share about energy shifting programs, any ideas you had or anything you had feedback on or were hoping to see more of.
Valerie.
This is just a comment. We have tried really hard in our household to keep our energy costs way down. So we have solar panels and an electric car, and we keep everything down really low. We have instant hot water and all kinds of stuff like that going. So I just wanted to say that when we have those peak times, we're likely, you know, we turn everything off, but when we turn everything off, there's not much to turn off or turn down. So it might make a $1 difference.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really, I found it interesting then to get a note that says, do I want to donate my $1? You know, it almost seemed irrelevant, you know, so it would be interesting to know if there's any tracking about households that are really already way down at the bottom of the use level.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll bring back that feedback. I have heard something similar to what you're saying, that the savings, especially for people who are already really energy conscious on the peak time rebates, are not really significant. So yeah, so that program that you talked about where, you know, if you donate the $1, the idea was to then pool that together so that then a donation and then PGE matched the donation. And so I think they had at the end of it, $10,000 that went to the Oregon Food Bank. And so some of the feedback we had too was that it would be nice if it could go to a local organization, that the community maybe could vote on a local organization to get all of the peak time rebates that were donated.
I think my comment in there, just, you know, to shape it just a little bit, there's not, if you're already way down, that little bit of money, I mean, I already donate to charities and, you know, way more than that. It seems like there might be an alternative way to kind of acknowledge that people are doing that without, you know, the first time we worked really hard, we turned everything off. We saved 56 cents, you know, because there wasn't anything to save. So maybe just different ways. And I'm also thinking that sometimes maybe people that are, that don't have the advantage of having the kind of systems that we have in our household, they work really hard and they turn everything down. And maybe they just really need to take money off their energy bill for themselves. So if that makes sense, I just wanted to throw those things out.
Yeah, no, thank you. That makes total sense. We, being the people that are out in the community, have been advocating for bill reduction as a credit or a bill credit. Apparently with the system, it's really difficult, but they are working on that and finding a way to do that to be able to give people that are struggling to pay their energy bills a bill credit for saving energy. So hopefully we'll have that figured out.
Other questions for Samara?
I think
Yes.
It's muted.
Okay. What I know that some people are wondering about and that we have chatted about is that we have a light rail station, as you probably know, in our community, and we have a parking garage. The top floor of the parking garage has solar panels, and it's the only light rail station in that we know of anywhere actually, which is net zero. Because it supplies enough energy to power that garage and the station next to it, not obviously the light rail, but the station. However, there's a possibility that we're going to add on to that a couple more floors. That's been talked about, which would mean that we would redo the solar, would have to move the solar obviously up to the top. And there's been talk about utilizing that space, because it is like a community space, to create some kind of microgrid or something, perhaps one of those fancy batteries that many of us read about from time to time, as a resilience to help our community in those times. That it could be the big earthquake or whatever other areas. And I don't know if you guys have talked about that, because it's certainly a logical possibility, because it sits right in the center of a community, or near the center of our community, and it's already being used to create energy. So this is something that I think a lot of people would be interested in, and would like to hear what PG&E might think about that.
Yeah, I don't, unfortunately, I don't know about plans for that, the plans for that parking garage. But I can.
Well, the plans haven't been created yet. That's the sort of the interesting part about it, is that it's going to be planned. We're going to, but it hasn't. The design hasn't happened yet, but it will. So this is a really good time to be able to build something in that could help with some kind of resilience for the community.
Okay, well, I certainly will pass that along. We have discussions certainly with the county as well.
And with TriMet, because TriMet is a very,
and TriMet, yeah.
Obviously it's a partner in all this. And we our community partnered with TriMet to build that station. So it's, kind of an important part of the community.
Great, thank you for that, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Did you have any other questions for our attendees?
No, that's it. Thank you so much. The feedback was really helpful. I will put more information about the smart thermostat and peak time rebates program, and then my email in the chat box. If anyone thinks of anything that they want to share, they can email me later on.
Thanks, Chip.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you taking your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. So let's see, we will go back to our presentation. And let's see. So next order of business is LUART, and we have very limited LUART activity right now. Obviously, the things have been pretty slow, generally speaking, but we have seen some activity. We just haven't really been able to really thoroughly track that. So I just received a report today, a staff report about this Rusk Road 3-lot partition and habitat conservation area development. This will probably be approved, and it's right on Rusk. It's on Rusk Road, right across from the Turning Point Church. And right now it's a single-family lot, and will be turned into 3 single-family lots. And 2 of those will have duplexes on them. But we don't have any. I don't have any graphics to share with anybody about that today. The other LUART business that's occurring is that we did receive some updates. The county is continuing with its housing strategies policy implementation project, and so we'll be taking time, we'll be making an effort to be engaged in that. Also, your map it representation is engaged in this effort as well, and we're trying to track this and through the, it includes the House Bill 2001 implementation from the state level to add missing middle housing. So if anybody out there is interested in, volunteering to, participate in those efforts with your MAPIT representatives, please feel free to reach out to me or send an email to contact@oakgrovecpo.org. Again, that's contact@oakgrovecpo.org. And let us know that you're interested in helping out with that, and we'll get you involved. We'll be having some committee meetings by Zoom so that we can work through some of these and advocate on that. The other really exciting piece of news in the LUART landscape is the public hearings for legalizing bakeries and brew pubs, which we've been working on for a few years at the Oak Grove Community Council. And we are now at a point where the county is preparing to schedule. They've made their public announcement that hearings before the Planning Commission can begin as early as mid-June. Although they may occur afterwards, and the Planning Commission probably will be having meetings by Zoom, so we can participate in those and share our excitement for these changes. And again, just in summary, this is allowing some manufacturing when it's for edible products, like microbreweries and bakeries, and maybe cheese makers, different kinds of edible products, and that involve the primary processing of raw materials, which is the technicality that made these things illegal previously in our along McLaughlin Boulevard in the historic downtown Oak Grove area. So we're really excited about this. We don't have any hearing dates yet, but we did receive the notice that that the hearings can occur as early as the late June Planning Commission meeting. So we will share more information about this as the hearings get scheduled and the dates near, and there is opportunities to voice your opinions about this matter that we're really excited to be moving forward with. So more to come with that. Next up, we have our committee updates, and I will ask Jan Lindstrom to provide an update for the Concord Property and Library Planning Task Force.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Very exciting things happening with the Concord property. Many of you are participants and or also just have joined the Zoom meetings that we've been having. So you're probably aware that we worked with OPSIS. The task force worked with OPSIS, the county staff, and JLA Public Feedback on putting together community input into the design process for a possible library on the Concord property. And then they came back and we began having weekly meetings last week. There's another one tomorrow. If anyone is interested, I can send the Zoom link out. And so the architecture firm has gone through and put together this pretty elaborate series of diagrams and drawings and schematics about the possible design options. I don't know if you guys can see this at all. It's also online, I believe, on the county's website under the Concord Task Force. You can pull this out and look at it, which might actually be really nice to do that online because you can enlarge it. But it has various options for, a freestanding library in different places, or an attached library in one location and an attached library in a different location. All kinds of amazing amenities, park space, trying to figure out the efficiencies so that if there's, a common entry between the community center and the library, maybe we can save money by not having to have a receptionist at both places, that kind of thing. So they're really looking at ways to get the community everything they want in these buildings, but also making it as cost efficient as possible, especially with what's going on right now. So that's what's going on. We're doing weekly meetings. We're looking at all of this. Obviously, it's going to be a huge amount of review of these very complicated drawings and a lot of feedback. But we're getting to the really interesting part where it looks like we will be able to make the final decision about, yes, we do want the new library to be in on the Concord property, and then move on to the design phase. So it's pretty exciting. And Joseph just put up the upcoming meetings. So if you're interested, you can go on the county website, look for Concord Property and Library Planning Task Force, and all the meeting links are there, and you can click and go on and join if you are interested.
We do have a quick question from Susan. She's asking if the new library is being affected by possible deficits due to the coronavirus. Jan, do you have any information about that?
I was going to say that might be a Paul Savas question, but what I'm told is no, it will not, because it's already planned for. It's already been budgeted. The money has been paid by the taxpayers for years without getting a library. The Friends of the Library is definitely looking at raising additional funds so that we can add fancy amenities if we want, or special reading rooms for the history detectives or whatever. But the county has assured us that they're going to build a library and that the economy is not going to be a factor. Let's knock on wood. It's budget week. I don't know if Paul is still there to see if he wants to add anything. Paul Savas, are you there?
Yeah, I am here. I think, Jan, you're pretty well correct. We are in budget season or budget week. There is I'll say a set aside, but there's a budget line for monies to be put aside to pay the debt service for a future bond to build the two libraries. I mean, it's considered one library, two locations, one being Gladstone, which will be the first one built, and then the Oak Grove Library, name not yet established. Concord Library, Oak Grove Library, not sure what it's going to be named. But no, to the original question, don't think there's going to be any impact, or don't foresee any impact as a result of the COVID virus as of yet. You know, the board is still, and more news tomorrow night. If you want to advocate for that, tomorrow night is the budget hearing, and you can attend that via Zoom, and you could advocate for that budget line for the monies, the general fund monies that will be dedicated to the building of the Oak Grove Library. So that would help in case there's any effort tomorrow for someone to remove that. I don't foresee that, but you know, 24 hours is a long time. And then there's another 25 to 30 days before the Board of County Commissioners actually approves the final budget in late June. That's what I have.
Excellent.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Do we have any other questions about the Concord Property and Library Planning Task Force? Seeing none,
Yes,
we will move on.
I do.
Oh, yes.
I have one, if we can find it here. Thanks. I'm a little confused, perhaps, because I haven't been in the meetings, but I'm not sure, Paul, maybe you can explain this, how this is a significant part of the budget of the county, and we're waiting to hear, as Jan said, if they can finance it, because my understanding is that this library, the money that was earmarked for the library is the library's own funds. It's coming out of future library funds. As far as I know, the county hasn't put any money into this other than ancillary money, because this is to be financed with the library's own funds that were originally designed and put into effect to create the ability to keep the library going. But we're using this actually to build the library, and that was part of the agreement with Gladstone to do all that stuff. Now, maybe it's changed, because I didn't realize that the library now is going to be budgeted. I'm very happy to see the county putting money into it rather than it just being used with library funds.
Happy to respond, Chips, and thanks for that. Let me just clarify a little bit. And it's not, so first of all, even with the contribution that the county would make annually for out of the general fund for debt service to build the library, that may not be enough money to completely fund the Oak Grove Library.
Now there we're in agreement. Yeah, okay.
So I think we knew that as the Oakla group a long time ago. I think we realized that. But I want to clarify one thing that you kind of raised, and that is that of the library district distribution that goes to the Oak Grove Library for operations currently, most of that is used up for just that, for operations and maintenance. So there's only about, I'm going to just say roughly, I think the last budget I saw was about a couple $100,000 left over annually. So that has gone into like a savings account, so to speak, or not really a savings account, but it's been put away for for this project. But $200,000 a year is not enough to completely fund the Oak Grove Library debt
Well,
service.
a couple of $1 million of it was already previous library funds that they already took out to do that, and out of library funds. I was just hoping to hear that there was another source other than that funds. That's what I didn't understand, because if we're waiting to hear how the county is going to finance it, that's exciting that they're putting money into it.
Well, yeah. So this is not a kind of a detailed mathematical financial thing that people need to absorb. So as you know, Chips, I think when Oakla was formed, they did some research. You were part of that, and realized that most of the libraries being built are $500 to $600 a square foot.
Yep.
Right. And then you look at 19,000 to 20,000 square feet approximately for an Oak Grove Library, and then you do the math, and then you do the debt service, even with the general fund contribution and the money put aside, there's may not still be enough money to pay it. So
I think that's right on, Paul. And you and I both know at the very beginning, we thought that was sort of an unrealistic idea, but they had to do that agreement. So the question is, where was the money going to come from to actually really build it?
Right. And I think that's part of the reason maybe that, the Friends of the Oak Grove Library, the Oak Lodge Library was actually formed, and Jan's right. Part of it was for amenities, and maybe it would help for any kind of funding gap.
Absolutely. We need to raise a lot of money.
Yeah. Thank you for allowing us to bring that to the surface. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Good.
And if anyone's making their will during the coronavirus,
Right.
add the Friends of the Library right in there.
Thank you all for that update. I'd like to turn it over to Valerie, our vice chair, who is also the chair of the Park Avenue Community Advisory Committee.
Okay. Well, the Park Avenue Community Advisory Committee has continued its meetings. I think we only really missed one meeting, and then we turned to Zoom and started working on that, which is, as we all know, not as effective in many ways, but it brings us together. We also have our grant management teams that are meeting once or twice a month. It seems like we're meeting more frequently than once, so at least twice a month these days, as far as trying to figure out how we're going forward. So the project is close to finalizing guiding principles for the project. The community has been working on that. The committee worked on it. That was part of the conversation at the February workshop. And then after that, there was some language that people have worked on to try to make sure that it captures the concept of what the community wanted. So my expectation is that those guiding principles will be finalized at the June 10th meeting. Also at the June 10th meeting, we will be starting the conversation about the framework plan, and the consultants will be leading that. And that will be an in-depth conversation. Now we broke into, I don't know how they do it, separate chat rooms or something that we did so that we could have small group discussions at our last meeting. And we will do that again. And community members will be able to listen in on those conversations. So
how did that work? How did that work with Zoom?
It worked fine. It was pretty interesting, yes. So we're always learning. I mean, it's all a big learning curve about how to do that. We were divided into two groups, We had our discussion, and then we somehow through cyberspaces got merged back together and did our printouts. What we know is that we, if all of the committee members are there, we'll probably need to be in 3 groups. And so we're kind of planning on that. We know that circumstances have changed because of the pandemic, et cetera, for some people. So we, Ann Muir, who's the vice chair of the group, and I have been actively working on connecting with people who have not been able to make meetings. You know, like we have one member who their original job went away and they're holding 2 other jobs at this point. So their schedules changed. So that's just one example. And we actually had a what I call a makeup meeting this afternoon. And we're doing those just for members who missed so that we can make sure that we get their input. The other project that we're really working on after we have the framework plan, we want to do good community engagement about the framework plan. And it's not going to be a workshop, public workshop, because we are not doing public workshops right now. So we have a lot of ideas. I feel pretty positive about how that's going forward, about the ideas about how we will engage people. And we're working on how we're going to do the engagement before we have the framework plan, so that as soon as we have it, we can start doing that. So some of the ideas that we're doing, I just say that we want to be very careful that we reach to the people whose voices are not always heard. That was one of the primary functions of the grant that was written, is that we wanted to do that kind of community engagement. Well, with the pandemic and the fact that people have to have the ability to meet online, and they have to have stable cable connections and all kinds of things like that, we are working to see how we might do some other ways of engagement. Then one idea, for example, is that we will have flyers that we're going to go through the North Clackamas schools with the hope of handing those flyers that will have information about coming meetings or phone numbers for people to reach us, and have those flyers go out with food packages that are going out at the schools right now, so that that particular population is reached. We also, we don't have the same way to reach everybody all at once. We're working to get an article in the Clackamas Review. We are working with the idea that we will contact leaders of all of the citizens groups, or as many as we can. So if you're, for example, the head of North Clackamas Urban Watersheds Council, well, we might be contacting you and asking you to send an email out to your membership as a way of reaching, and we'll do that with the others. So we have HDOG and we have the CPO and we have all kinds of places. So the idea is not just the committee members, but to ask the committee members then to think about people in their neighborhoods and in their circles so that we can do effective outreach. So I feel better now than I did before about how we were going to do outreach. We've got a lot of people that have been really thinking about it and how we're going to do that. And again, the meeting on June the 10th is at 6 o'clock in the evening, and it will be a Zoom meeting and open to the public. If you are not getting invitations to that, I was trying to think that the list does go out. It's on the county website, and you're invited to come and at least listen in. We're trying to work pretty hard to make sure that the actual members of the committee do most of the work. That's why they applied to be on the council in the first place. And we will have time at the end for voices of visitors and others who come and have questions. So June the 10th, that will be our next meeting. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Any questions for Valerie? I don't see any, but that's really awesome to hear. I'm really encouraged to hear that you're, likewise encouraged about the direction of public outreach is going. That was really a major component behind the grant application that was written, and so I'm happy to hear that you're feeling encouraged about that. Okay, so I guess we will move. Oh, we have a question from Eleanor Hunter. Just saw that, Eleanor.
Okay, I raised my little hand, and you can do it both ways. Valerie, I just wanted to really commend you for this wonderful wide variety of community outreach. I mean, that just sounds really great and very thoughtful, and I want to really commend you for that. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
I think it's everybody's first experience in a pandemic, and so the challenges are there in trying to get the voices of the vulnerable people, and everybody in this group that's listening in tonight and here at the meeting. You too will be encouraged to make contact with people that you know, especially those that live and work in the area, so that they can be participants.
Right. It's just, what are the best practices? Because there's so many different ways to, as you're so sensitive to, it's like not everybody has a computer, not everybody has, you know, solid internet. What are all the different ways to do that? And that's something that, you know, you'll see. I'm going to make an announcement later that that's part of the whole thing of what are the different ways we can do that in a pandemic otherwise, because there's never been sort of one simple way to communicate with people in this area. And it's always a challenge of like, how do you reach people? So I've just really, you know, look to piggyback or, you know, borrow or, you know, whatever. Just, it's great to try out all these new things and find out what works. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Valerie? Okay, so hearing none, we will move on. So the county still is, you know, recruiting for the various advisory boards and commissions, the ABCs. And so we always let you know about those each month, and we'll include references to these in our follow-up email, although some of these are closing within the next couple of days. So just be mindful that if you're interested in some of these, you might need to act quick. So first up is the Clackamas Workforce Partnership, and we've actually had some open recruitments for this for quite some time, and I've actually been carrying these slides over for several presentations in a row. So we've talked about this one before, but there's 4 positions open, and the deadline for applications this time is July 1st. And again, we'll put this information into the follow-up email newsletter. Also, the Committee for Community Involvement, which, you know, oversees the Clackamas County, you know, Goal 1 and other, you know, community outreach, you know, committees and mechanisms. So this is coming right up. May 29th is the deadline. I think that's Friday. So if you're interested in participating in the CCI, please get your applications in soon, because that will be closing up pretty quick. Community Health Council is another one, and they actually have openings for 16 additional members. So really give some consideration to, you know, giving this body some help if that's something that you feel you know, would be a good way for you to contribute to the community. This is a great opportunity, and they could use our help. And lastly, the Economic Development Commission, which is a really important group in the county. They have a lot of sway with the board of county commissioners and you know, setting priorities for the county. And so this is a really important commission as well. 7 vacancies, 3-year terms. If you are interested, wow, January 31st. I don't think that's correct. I mean, maybe this is a stale slide. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at that one. If this is still active, we will include the listing in the follow-up newsletter. So I apologize about that if I have a stale slide in here. And with that, we will move into a couple of announcements from people who were unable to attend tonight. So I'll read those really quick, and then we'll take some announcements from the floor. First off, our treasurer, James Civiletti, notified me that the Old Oak Grove School and New Urban High School will be having I mean, they haven't been able to have their formal get together, you know, like they were planning on having in March before everything went, to have alumni of the school come and, you know, kind of take that final tour. And so they're trying to consider some ways of doing that differently, and perhaps virtually, you know, allowing a virtual tour. And so I'll just read this really quick from Cindy Detchen, the Executive Director of Community Relations. She says, I was hoping that we would have better news by mid-May to allow some small gathering and entrance to the old Oak Grove New Urban building prior to demolition. Unfortunately, there's no possible way for us to allow the public into our facilities or host any kind of gathering at this time. I do want to try something to honor the history of the school and share that with the community. So we have some 360-degree images of the interior that we will use to share a virtual walkthrough. In addition, over the next few months, we will get access to old yearbooks and scan some images. Feel free to encourage people to continue to submit photos via a form, and we'll share the link to the form in our follow-up email, or to email her at her email address, which will also include in follow-up email. Perhaps in the fall, when things are hopefully open, we'll find a way to celebrate the community's history. So I wanted to share that with everyone while we were here during announcements. Next up, we received an announcement from the Census Bureau. Basically, what's happening is that the Census Bureau for the 2020 census is pushing back its field operations in response to COVID-19. So hiring for census takers is still getting started, and workers are still needed in the area. So we will, we'll share information about this, in the follow-up email as well. I feel like I'm getting some chats, but I can't see the screen, so I'm not sure who's trying to chat with me. But let's see. So we'll share the Census Bureau update. There's a few different data points with this, but the main thing is the census is being delayed because of the current pandemic, and but they still are trying to ramp up for eventual field operations later in the year. So it's really important, obviously, to get the census complete. So if this is something, again, that you feel that you might be able to make a contribution, then we'll include the information in our follow-up email so that you can perhaps participate in that way.
Joseph, maybe you want to change the screen? Do you want to change the screen from the advisory boards?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So we are on announcements right now. I don't have any detail. I don't have any printed detail to share with anyone about this, but we will get this into our follow-up email as well. So with that, I do want to ask, are there any announcements from the floor? I believe I heard Eleanor say that she would have announcements. So I'll turn it over to you. Please unmute your microphone.
My microphone.
There you go. No, you're all set. We can hear you.
Okay.
You're still muted for a second.
Okay, great. So thank you, Joseph. And I'm excited to let the community know about a grant that was recently submitted to Metro. And I know that I want to acknowledge that news of this grant submittal, I know that it's generated some really strong concerns and feelings with some members of our community. And I just want to make it clear that the intention of the grant is to bring resources to the entire community for the benefit of the entire community. And so I hope that by sharing sort of the thinking process and some of the context around the grant, that'll help clear up or at least soften whatever misunderstandings there might be. So there was never any intention to offend or exclude any members of the Oak Grove or Jennings Lodge community. In conversation with our Metro counselor, Christine Lewis, a number of us learned about a grant cycle that was underway at the time, and that there might be some funds available to help towards incorporation. We thought about it, we talked about a dozen folks in the initial conversations, and we decided to go for it. So grant writing, as many of you know, it's not something to be done easily in a large group. So 2 people wrote it, 2 people edited it, and about 9 participated in the overall values, concepts, and visions. The idea being that if we receive the grant, then it would be announced to the entire community and everyone would be involved in determining how to proceed. So I just want to be clear that the grant is not a start of a new campaign to incorporate or annex. It's just a first step to gather current information that will be identified by the community to help define financial realities and to weigh the pros and cons between staying the same, annexing, or incorporating. So the main purpose of the grant is to develop discussion points for community conversations, because none of this is going to go anywhere without all of us. So all of this was happening just as the pandemic arrived. The grant request was submitted in late April for $125,000 to create 2 reports, an economic report and one on governance structures. There's no public engagement, there's no campaign for anything, there's no focus groups, no surveys, nothing along those lines. So one of the grant requirements was that there's a fiscal agent, and the fiscal agent had to be either a city or a county. So Clackamas County declined, and the city of Milwaukee said that they'd consider the possibility, which was enough to be able to submit the grant by the deadline. And we just heard today that while the grant has received approval to move forward, there's still months of refinement required, but it's moved, they've changed their process because of what's going on. And either way, so it's received approval to move forward, and there's still a whole lot of refinement that has to happen. I've asked Joseph, I don't know if it's happened or not, but we want to put the grant document, the grant that was submitted, we want to post that onto the Oak Grove Community Council website so that anybody can read it and access it. So I think that we can all agree that this is an urban area with a rural governance. And I, for one, would really prefer local people making local decisions about local resources. But I need to know more about a lot of things to feel comfortable doing that. So I'm proud of the various community efforts that I've done, and I'm proud of all the efforts that my neighbors, working at all sorts of different ways, have done to help the community. And whether I agree with them or not, or they agree with me or not, at least we're all trying. And sometimes those efforts can be misunderstood or misconstrued. And sometimes trust is a really hard thing to rally, especially in stressful times like we find ourselves in now. And we're all just doing the best we can. So if all the conditions are met and the grant is received, everyone in the community will participate. So in the meantime, because it's going to take a while to find out and what's going to happen, but in the meantime, if people could consider a couple of things. If there's an effort to either annex or incorporate, what would you like the name of the effort to be? Okay, at this point, there's no group, there's no name, there's nothing like that. So what's a name that you would want the effort to be? And what would you need to feel confident and excited about our area possibly annexing or incorporating? And what ideas do you have about how we would get there together? This is the point, you know, Valerie, how you were talking about different community engagement. What kind of public process do you want to have? So I just want to let everybody know what's going on, and thanks.
Thank you, Eleanor. Did you also have an announcement about Rose Villa that you wanted to share?
Oh,
you had mentioned in your email.
Yes, thank you so much. I forgot about that. Okay, so Rose Villa, for people who live near the where Schroeder and Courtney, there's an intersection there. There was an old house that was there that was all dilapidated. It was sold. Rose Villa bought it, and they took the siding off and stuff like that. So the house, I think by now, has been torn down. And I just wanted to let people know that it's going to be a staging ground for Bremick construction. They're doing, Rose Villa is creating the phase 3 right now of a plan that they've been doing for quite a while. And it's to completely rehab their medical facility, which is really woefully out of date. So obviously with the pandemic, it's been a little interesting. It's a senior citizen community. Knock wood, they have no cases, no evidence between staff or any residents of any COVID. They're just like they're just on it, as I so appreciate that they are. And I've asked them to, if they can put up a sign, just letting the community know like what's going on and what's happening in that building and that sort of stuff. So it was just, letting people, because a lot of people are walking their dogs and doing things like that. So to just let people know what's happening there. So one of the things that I think is really great is, and if you're driving down River Road, you'll see the cranes, or not the cranes, but the backhoes or whatever. There's a huge amount of old concrete that's there. And what they're doing is they're crushing the concrete on site, and they figure it's going to keep like 250 truckloads of, so they're not bringing gravel in, but they're like creating their own gravel there. So they're keeping all of this truck traffic, heavy truck traffic, off the roads. So they're using that gravel to do the stuff that's there. And of course, they've done all the asbestosis abatement and, anything like that, they've done it. They've done all that. So I think that's it. Great. Thanks for reminding me. Thanks for reminding me, Joseph.
Of course. So thank you for those announcements. And are there any other announcements from the floor? Mark, could you unmute yourself? It won't let me unmute you. Oh, did we lose Mark? Oh, no, there you are. Yeah, for some reason, I can't get any audio from you, Mark.
There, I got it. Sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, sorry about that. Mark Knudsen.
No problem, we got you.
And I'm on the board of Oak Lodge Water Services. Actually, first question for Eleanor. What's the time frame for when we might hear back from Metro? It sounded like you said a month, but what are they really looking for? And so what is Milwaukee's role in terms of functioning as this sort of financial manager for this study?
I wish I knew. I don't know. I mean, I just found out today that the process that the grant's been approved to move to the next level. I don't know what their timing is. So, and
Okay.
the whole thing with fiscal agent, all of that still has to be worked out. So I don't know.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Well, I obviously very interested in this grant, and I'll be putting my thinking cap on in terms of the questions that you've asked. So you bet.
Great.
In terms of updates from the district, a lot of you undoubtedly received a postcard that talked about proposed 3% rate increase based on feedback, dogs in the background, based on feedback that we received from the public. I'm really sorry about that. Based on feedback from the public, the board has basically redirected staff to modify that rate proposal. And so it is now a 0.5% rate increase, and that 0.5% rate increase will be earmarked for a emergency customer assistance program, all geared around supporting customers that aren't able to pay their bills during the pandemic. So a substantial scale back in terms of the proposed rate increase. We've found several ways that we can save some money. It will ultimately cost us some money in the long run to be able to do this, but we think it's important to be responsive to the situation that's affecting everybody these days. And so we want to be responsive to that. And so those that are really into it, there is a rate hearing that will be held on Tuesday, June 16th, and presumably a Zoom meeting, but we're still working out the details, where we will consider any public comment related to the proposed 0.5% rate increase. So that's my update.
Excellent, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that update.
You bet.
Do we have any other announcements from the floor? Jan.
I just need to know if the Sue on the phone is Sue Conahan. Is she still there?
Sue.
Yes. Yes.
Sue, is that you, Sue Conahan?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure I got you on our attendance. And then Sarah, is that Sarah Joe from Oak Lodge Water?
Sarah? I can't unmute you.
Oh, I was trying to, yeah, here. Okay, I'm gonna assume that it is, but we'll check on if we can't unmute.
Okay, yeah, we'll try to confirm that.
Okay.
Okay, great. Let's see. Are there any other announcements from the floor? Don't see anything. Thelma, I'll check in with you. Thelma, did you have any announcements?
Actually, the only thing that I would like to announce is that I'm working right now on the June CIA newsletter, and I would like Eleanor and the Water Service District to send me something that I can put in the newsletter about the rates and about the incorporation effort.
Okay. I
Sure
believe
thing,
that they
Thelma.
have both received.
Sure thing.
Yep. Okay, good. Okay, great. Well, thank you, Selma. And I think with that, we'll do a quick schedule review. We have, for the foreseeable future, we are planning on holding our meetings over the Zoom platform. However, the board, the Oak Grove Community Council Board of Directors will, review that each month and, look at the guidance from the public health officials and, make a determination as we need to. And if there's any feedback anyone has for us, feel free to send, emails to contact@oakgrovecpo.org. But for now, we are just planning on, for the time being, we'll just assume that all our meetings will be held over the Zoom platform until further notice. So we'll be having a board meeting on June 1st, and we'll be planning for the June 24th meeting. If there's any topics of interest that you'd like to hear about, please feel free to reach out. Again, contact@oakgrovecpo.org. And also those board meetings are available to the public. And so, we'll continue to, we'll announce, we can announce those just like we do our regular meetings. And so those can be joined in by anybody that's interested in doing so. With that, we're going to conclude our meeting at 8:18. It's a little earlier than usual, but we're trying to keep things a little bit short under the current circumstances. So I appreciate everybody for joining us tonight. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking time from your evening to on this day with wonderful weather, taking your time to spend with us. And so thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Joseph.
Thanks, Joseph. Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, Valerie, did we end up with anyone that we didn't identify in the attendance tonight?
I think we got everybody. I think Jan and Joan did a good job with that.
Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, well, thanks again for providing the Zoom account for us to do this. And
we'll check
did you
in,
have any time? Yeah, do you have any time tomorrow to check in?
Yeah. I have a meeting in the morning.